It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad and John Show, and today's date is April 30th. This is the B block, which means we start right around 7:20. The reason I give the date is because although we do this show live, 7 to 8 o'clock on 104.5 KSOQ, the guys at KBDZ's favorite radio station, we also have lots of listeners to our show, either on the podcast format, which is on bjshow.co, or on the video podcast format, which is bjshow.video. So that's where we give you some references to what we're talking about. Okay, John. After the show was over, I did a deep dive, and I sent you some maps of North County. Remember we talked about this with the situation with Coldwater Creek?
Yeah, they were great maps of Coldwater Creek, Brad. I zoomed in on some of them.
And I also did a ChatGPT dive. Did I send you that as well, too?
You did send me that, yeah.
And
I didn't read the ChatGPT thing. It just looked like a ChatGPT summary, yeah.
What I said was that those houses, and we're talking about houses that were built in the floodplain of Coldwater Creek, and interestingly enough, I didn't really know. I knew the general vicinity, but when you talked about it in the area yesterday, I sort of zoomed in on it. It's right behind the Schnucks there in Lindbergh, right there at Manresa. There's a Schnucks, and there used to be a Gold's Gym, and now it's going to turn into a Crunch Fitness. But the interesting thing about it was I said those houses were relatively new because most of that area that we talked about, most of those houses were built like in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and I thought they were a little bit newer than that, but it said the houses were built from the late 80s to about the mid 90s, which once again in that area is relatively new because you've got Old Town Florissant, which is not too far from there, but most of those houses, that's where I grew up and had a lot of friends that lived in that area. Most of those houses were there back in the late 50s, 60s, and 70s. So if the houses were built in the late 80s and late 90s, or late 80s and up to mid 90s, that's relatively new. And it's interesting because if you look at that map and you see those houses that you mentioned, that street, there's a very big area there that is like almost like a common ground or something like that. And that's what they did. It's sort of akin to, I don't know if you've been out in St. Charles County recently where you go along 364 and after you pass Guttermouth, there's that subdivision they built on the floodplain. They literally have, that's the floodplain of Darden Creek out there in the Cottleville area. And they brought that area out of the floodplain with fill, and they built houses on it, which essentially is the same thing they've done in the subdivision up in Florissant, where this was the floodplain of the Coldwater Creek area, and they put fill on top of it. And that's why the story we had last year where the EPA dudes were going around and drilling holes in people's floors in their basement and taking soil samples because the soil underneath their home, not the fill, but the soil underneath their home is the original floodplain soil of the Coldwater Creek. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, Brad. I know exactly what you're talking about. And for folks in the St. Louis area, real quick, Brad, if you ever ask people where they went to high school and they said they went to Hazelwood West or they went to McClure, then we're talking about their neighborhood, right, Brad?
Oh yeah. That's
right around there.
Well,
yeah, I interrupted you. You were saying something more important.
No, back in my day, that was Hazelwood. When I went to school, that was just Hazelwood High School.
Oh yeah, but Brad, that's the Stone Age. Come on.
Yeah, that's right. I rode my dinosaur to work, to school, 10 miles uphill both ways, that kind of a thing. Okay. We haven't talked too much about this. I need to listen to the show. Sarah Fensky does the Legal Roundtable, and I saw this on the recap. Did you see this on the the STLPR.org website about the Legal Roundtable they did, where it came up as
I didn't. Well, what was the topic, Brad?
Well, there are numerous topics, but one of the topics that came up with the KDHX thing was on the Legal Roundtable. And I cannot divulge who I talked to, but on Monday, after I got off the air, I was given a phone number on Sunday night by someone who is pro KDHX, trying to keep KDHX alive in its current form. And I was given the phone number of an attorney who's working on this case. And there's a very interesting aspect of this thing, is that apparently there was some legal action against the board because the board did some things which, according to what this person, and this is an attorney that told me this, there was action that the board had taken to essentially get rid of all the associate board members. And the way it worked is if you were like on the air as a volunteer, you were considered an associate board member and you got like a fraction of a vote. Does that make any sense to you, John?
Yeah. Okay, so they wanted to get rid of the riffraff and just have their people vote.
Right, which supposedly broke Missouri state law. And the reason this is according to this attorney that I talked to, the reason they put it into bankruptcy very quickly is the bankruptcy proceeding negates any action about illegal activities of the board.
Oh, so once you get that ball rolling, you can't go back and say, hey, that board vote was incorrect.
Right. So the legal little aspect of this is that if you get, and I'm just throwing out, theories. If you put your hand in the cookie jar and all of a sudden you realize you may get caught with your hand in the cookie jar, you just declare bankruptcy quick and your sins of putting your hand in the cookie jar are absolved. Does that make any sense?
It does. But now this would seem to advance your theory that folks on the board are looking to feather their own nest.
Well, yeah, which this is exactly what this attorney said. And the bizarre part of it was, I asked this person, I'm not going to say male or female, I asked them point blank. I said, I've been in business for a long time. I've been in the receiving end of bankruptcies, and I don't think, I probably had 20 or 30 companies that I've done business with over the years who have gone bankrupt on me. And you get the letter, so-and-so has declared bankruptcy, blah, 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 blah. And they talk about, if you have a claim, file a claim, yada, yada, yada. Okay, I don't think I've ever gotten one penny. The way this bankruptcy is being structured is everybody who is a debtor or actually a creditor to KDHX is getting paid 100%. If you did $10,000 worth of work with them and they owe you $10,000, according to the way this thing is headed right now, if the bankruptcy court settles, you will get your $10,000. Plus, there will be $2 million left over after the smoke clears, which is the interesting part of this is that if you read the KDHX stuff, they're talking about once we're out of bankruptcy, we'll have a new direction for KDHX. Well, if you don't have the radio station, what the hell's the new direction? That's like saying, hey, I'm in the race car business and I'm in NASCAR, but I declared bankruptcy and the bankruptcy court's going to take away all my NASCAR cars. But once we get through bankruptcy, we're going to have a huge future in NASCAR. Get what I'm saying? It's like, okay, if you don't have your
Yeah, I get that. And by the way, Brad, just to be clear for YouTube, you said new direction and not nude erection. I want to make sure that YouTube knows that.
John.
They're called homophones, Brad. Don't pronounce it homophones. John, they're homophones. Go ahead, Brad.
Thank you for the correction. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Okay.
I hated it when Eric Greitens would get on television and talk about how he was going to send everybody in a new direction. It's like, Eric, we don't need to hear that.
Okay. Do you know who the guy's name is? He's been on TV a lot. He has his own TV show, Marcus Lemonis. Do you know who he is?
I know the name, but I think I only know him from you. Who is he?
He's the Camping World CEO, and he has an interesting story that he's not a native-born American. He was originally born in Beirut, Lebanon. He emigrated to the United States, and he's become wildly successful. And he has these like supermarts, like Walmart kind of operations of camping stores where you can buy campers and RVs and stuff like that. And he has one of them out in the Wentzville area. When you're driving along I-70, you can see the back end of it. You get in off of, I can't remember what the name of the road is there. It's in the area that nobody knows about. And you mentioned this the other day. It's called Josephville. Most people don't even know what Josephville is. But Josephville is an unincorporated area that is to the east of Wentzville. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that if you walk out of the General Motors plant and cross the street, you're actually in what is sort of determined to be Josephville. Okay, he has this deal where he's very, very, very proud of being an American. He's a naturalized American citizen. And what he does is he puts up huge flagpoles with huge monster flags. And anybody who drives along I-70 knows his flag right there on the back side of the Camping World because the front entrance is on the other side of I-70. And he's gotten into many fights with cities. And the latest one is there's a city in North Carolina, I can't remember what the city is, Greenville, North Carolina, where the city essentially says, we don't approve of the size of your flagpole. How you like that one, John?
Easy, Brad.
We don't approve of the size of your flagpole, nor do we approve of the size of your flag. And you have violated our zoning restrictions. And if you don't take it down, we're going to fine you X amount per day. So you know what he did?
What did he do, Brad?
He just shut down the dealership. Said, okay, fine.
Oh, yeah. Say, yeah. And so, in other words, if they're going to cut off their nose to spite their face, let's just take off the whole face.
Okay, now, John, I don't necessarily understand this. Why would a municipality, if you are a red blood American citizen and you go so much as to run for city council, you would think that you were like a supporter of, America and the country we are and where we've come from, where we're headed, that kind of stuff. Don't you think if someone came into your business or your town and said, first off, I'm going to make you a lot of money because of the fact you're going to get my sales tax revenue, you're going to get my real estate tax revenue, and I'm so proud of the fact that I love this country. I was not born here, but I came to this country as an immigrant, and I've done very well for myself. I'm going to put up a big, huge American flag. Why would a city council have a problem with that? Can you? And I'm asking this sincerely. Why would that happen?
To me, it sounds like something where either officials from the store, whether it's Marcus Lemonis or whether it's, their lobbyists or whoever, didn't do enough to kowtow to the city councilmen, councilwomen, whoever is in charge. And it sounds like it's a personal thing because it's hard to make an argument that, okay, you can't have that big of an American flag because we can't have too much patriotism in our enclave. So to me, it sounds like I'd be more likely to believe there's something personal behind this.
Okay, let me read you 2 paragraphs from the story. Lemonis told WITN this week that he closed the smaller of his 2 RV dealerships in Greenville on April 18th, accusing council members of actively trying to disparage his business for refusing to take down the giant flags. City leaders in Greenville, North Carolina, voted to take legal action against the flags in March since they violate city ordinances, and Lemonis has been hit with $15,000 in fines. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Now, I'm going to give you a flip side of this, and it may sound like I'm sort of being hypocritical, especially in West County and St. Louis County. When the cellular companies came in and tried to put up their cell towers, a lot of the municipalities out in West County, who are like sort of, got their nose in the air.
Okay, that's very stereotypical, but go ahead. You're probably right. Go ahead.
Okay, they said, we don't want that ugly cell tower. We want you to disguise it as a giant flagpole with a flag on it, okay? And you can probably, in your neighborhood, you probably know of some of them I talk about, right? There's some.
Is that true? Is that like urban myth, or did that really happen, Brad?
No. They've done this. They've done this. Where, matter of fact, and unfortunately, or whatever, I know people in this business. There's a guy that I knew that worked for a company that was contracted with these cell phone towers. And the problem on this was they're responsible for putting the flags up there when the flags get tattered. But what gets complicated about this is when there is an order from the government, the president, wherever, to fly flags at half-mast, this dude had to go around to all these cell towers and lower these flags to half-mast. Okay, this is where it gets sort of interesting because they said that they wanted these flag, and now the interesting part of this is if you use the English language and you say you're going to flag something, what does that mean, John?
You're going to highlight it.
Right.
You want everyone to see it.
So if you are essentially putting up towers that the city fathers think, oh my God, a cellular tower is so ugly, we have to flag it. So in other words, what you're doing is you're sort of drawing attention to the fact that it's a cell phone tower, okay? Here's the interesting thing. This is Brad's exact example of the law of unintended consequences. Some of these flags some of these towers are in areas where they border on residential areas, and there's people that live near these cell towers, which are actually disguised as flagpoles with flags on them. Have you ever been around a flagpole that has a big flag on it on a windy day?
It is incredibly loud.
Yes, not only
incredibly loud.
Right, the flag is whipping in the wind, and not only that, the hardware that connects the flag, you've got turnbuckles and pulleys and stuff like that. That stuff rattles around as the flag moves around. The flag whips in the wind, and the hardware rattles. So the neighbors are saying, "Hey, that's keeping me up at night because of the fact that damn flag is making all this noise." But the city council says, yes, but we made them put that flag on the cell phone tower to disguise it as a flagpole. So therefore, tough noogies because of the fact that we don't want anybody. It's just like they put another one of these up, down in Washmo, and it's so stupid looking. The disguised cellular antennas, which look like a tree, which don't look like a tree. You know what I'm saying, John?
I've never seen one of those before.
Oh, wow. Well, let me tell you. You ever drive on Highway 40 in Ladue?
I do.
Okay, if you're going east on 40, when you cross over the Clayton-Warson overpass, look to your right. That would be south of Highway 40. There's one of them right there. Now that one's a pretty good one. That one, and because it's a shorter tower, but the one in Washington that's so stupid looking, it's probably about a 300-foot. Maybe not that high, maybe 250 feet. It's a 250-foot monopole, as they call it in the business. And the top 150 foot is made to look like a giant evergreen tree or something like that. But once again, when you're looking at trees, how many times do you see, like, let's say, a 40-foot tree that doesn't have any branches for the first 20 feet, and then it has 20 feet of branches that start 20 feet above the ground? Get what I'm saying, John?
Yeah, I mean, in the old days, people would have called those some kind of Monsanto GMO trees, Maybe they've been bred to not have any limbs to be attacked by deer or others. Yeah, I get what you're saying. And by the way, I'm just pulling up a Washington, Missourian story from 2021 about a controversial cell phone tower that was to be disguised as a tree.
Right.
I would have, if you would have done like 2 truths and a lie with this, Brad, I would have called this one of the lies, because I'd say there's no way people actually do this. I had no idea this happened.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there used to be one out in O'Fallon, there south of 70, east of K, north of Mexico. And once again, people out there, they called it the Fuller Brush tree, because if you remember the old Fuller Brush man and you got to be old enough to remember the Fuller Brush man.
Yeah, I don't, but.
The Fuller Brush man used to be a door-to-door salesman who literally came to your door, knocked on your door, and tried to sell you Fuller brushes, which were made by the Fuller Company. But it looked like a bunch of, that one looked like, those prickly toilet bowl cleaners you use.
Oh, yeah, I do.
It looked like a big pole in the air that somebody had attached a bunch of those toilet bowl cleaners to it. And it's to the point where it's like, oh, it doesn't look like a cell phone tower. And see, my objection to this, I've taken pictures of this very tower in Washington. And the interesting thing is it's off of East 5th Street. The interesting thing about this is if you're driving down East 5th Street, and I've taken this picture many times, if you take, no matter where you are in East 5th Street, if you take a picture of this tower have the disguise branches on it, and nobody notices is if you show this to the average person, you say, okay, show me what is objectionable in this picture. And the people will point out the fact, oh, look at that tower. I don't like that tower. But yet what they're not noticing is there's 43,000 telephone poles along East 5th Street with telephone lines on them.
I say nobody is objecting to them because we're so desensitized to them.
You don't even notice it anymore. People don't notice that. And I guess my complaint is Ameren U's going to charge us more. I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start taking pictures of telephone or utility poles that Ameren maintains that are about ready to fall over. I can give you one right now on the corner of Page and Warson. This would be on the southwest, or the southeast corner of Page and Warson. That son of a gun is probably at a 20-degree angle, okay? Now, once again, if I build a building and it started leaning at 20 degrees, do you think that the building inspector would show up at my place and go, whoa, you got a problem here. We're going to condemn this building. But yet, Ameren gets away with it because of the fact that they say, oh, well, it's still in the air, isn't it? Right, and yet they run these stupid ads. We're doing all these things to harden your electricity. Well, it won't go out when the wind blows. Well,
strengthen the grid, Brad. Right. Get it right.
Strengthen the grid, yeah. So you can get more solar power from New Florence. Wasn't that where the place was?
Yeah, I think the bottom line that you're saying is if you've ever seen your pole 20 degrees, you should contact your urologist, right, Brad?
I never said that. John did. Okay.
Or Ameren. Contract Ameren or your urologist.
The Missourian article you saw, did they show the picture of the thing?
Yeah, they do. They have. Well, actually, they don't show it, but this gentleman, Ethan Colbert, who ended up going to the Post-Dispatch, he says the tower, which is being disguised to appear as a pine tree. Yes. That's the best line of the story.
It's such a joke, and it's to the point where it's like, yeah, disguised. Okay, that would be like saying, Okay, if I painted my car pink and put purple polka dots on it, do you think that would camouflage in if I were in the Central West End? No, it would still be.
Well, in the Central West End, it might fit in.
Okay.